We're all curious about various subjects and topics of interest. Tune in and perhaps share your curiosity. Hi, you're listening to Curing Curiosity. I'm your host, Christopher, and my guest in this episode is Lee Hopkins, the guest of Patterns of Possibility and a personal coach. So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
You had suggested a topic of discussing, like talking about patterns of behavior and confidence and stuff like that. So,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah. Actually, tell our listeners or viewers, depending on where they're listening from, um, what you do for a living.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm a personal coach. So I say a transitional coach because I want to help people transition from who they are to the next person that they want to be. And I help people build confidence, direction, and resilience based on patterns of behavior. And I've been doing it for quite some time, maybe a year or so.
That's cool.
Mm.
And I think a lot of people can relate to like being like not confident in anything like they're doing. It's like, oh, I'm not confident in this. I don't know if I should. Like I don't know the outcome of that. It happens to like everyone. I think at some point in their lives.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why I really drew myself to your podcast. What drew me to your podcast is the fact of the curiosity. And the curiosity really helps with the confidence because, like you said, people don't know. They don't know. They're unsure. They don't know what's going to happen, so they're unwilling to try it. But if they're more curious about it, they're more likely to try.
That exactly. I'll give a short story. I'm stumbling on my words because I can't really properly speak English, even though I'm a native English speaker. Uh, like the point about being curious, and why I also started a podcast partly is because I was curious about it. And actually, the name of my podcast, Curing Curiosity, was derivative from a song lyric. So
Okay.
that's how I got the name of it. It sounded great. I envisioned the logo for it as it is now. I will show you later. Or you can just go on my thumbnails and stuff and just see my logo there. And the point of curiosity is to just wanting to know something that you already don't and open to learning stuff. And it's really interesting at that point.
Yes, and that's really important to note that is just about learning because curiosity kind of can get twisted, and people can hear curiosity and think that people are being intentionally nosy or trying to um, feel uncomfortable
Yeah.
when they hear curiosity. Like, I'm curious about what's happening in your relationship. Well,
Yeah.
that's none of your business.
I mean,
But
yeah, I've had people ask me this, like, I'm curious, what's happening between you guys? Like, what's happening this? What's happening that? It's like, well, I'm not comfortable sharing that, but maybe one day. It's like, we get curious about the most random things at times as well.
yeah, and then it's like people kind of like try and think, well, why are you asking me about my relationship? Why are you curious about my relationship? And it just kind of like throws the whole thing off. We are trying to learn just for the sake of learning, not for
Yeah.
judgment, but just for the sake of learning.
Yeah, I mean, I personally love learning new things, and it's
Hmm.
why I like talking to a wide diverse of guests. I've had other podcasters, I've had musicians on as well. I have a personal coach, such as yourself. Like,
Yeah,
it's a wider range of people you can interview and meet just from even doing this and just asking, well, what is this exactly? How does this work? It's just being curious, and the whole point of curiosity is amazing in that way.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so I help people. I would say that I help people be more curious as well, because that's just a way to get your confidence is to be more curious, especially about yourself. And that's where we get into the patterns of behavior, the things
Yeah.
that you do. So a lot of people just don't realize what they do on a regular basis and why they do it on a regular basis.
Yeah,
So
because I
people
can
get
tell.
curious about that.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry. It's like I'm finally using Zoom for this, so I can see facial features and when to like speak. And yeah, I still do what I do. Newsflash: this was an audio only podcast before I started using Zoom. So,
I'm the first guy. I'm the first
well,
person.
technically no. I've used Zoom for other stuff, but you are the third person, I believe. Third person.
Okay. Three is my
Yes.
lucky number.
Perfect. So, because there are things I do like normally daily basis. Just I wake up, I go downstairs, I do breakfast, and I do breakfast. I make breakfast, proper way of saying it. And it's just some things I don't know why I do them. I just do them. It's like a force of habit. You've been doing them for so long that it's just like second nature. It's normal to you, but may not seem normal to somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what that's what I want people to recognize is that we are doing patterns of behavior or things that we were taught, and we don't necessarily understand why. Because we have to be able to follow our own voices in our heads and make our own decisions. Is what I mean. So if you're just doing things on autopilot, it really stops you from really getting to know yourself. Like, why are you doing this? A lot of people are doing things that they just hate to do. They just hate to do it, but they feel obligated to do it. And so they become miserable because they're doing this thing. And so if you just kind of peek into why it's happening, why have you decided that you're going, I don't know, to work this job and keep working at this place, even though you just really dislike it, and you are single with no kids, and
Oh,
there's nothing really keeping you there. Let's make the situation really like,
yeah.
let's make one of
Like
those situations.
I've definitely talked to people that don't like their jobs because like okay, it's normal. Like you have a job. It's like maybe it's your first job. You're working as a cashier.
Hmm.
For example, I work as a cashier. Let's say it's your first job, and it's like, oh, you start off with like, oh, okay, this isn't bad, but then like the more you do it, it's like I don't really like it that well. It's like, well, you gotta remember, yeah, that's technically normal. Like you may not like your first job, you may love it and continue for the rest of your life. That is true, but you
Hmm.
may not like absolutely like it. And it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go to this job. I'm gonna do what I have to do, get paid for it, and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, and then when you're starting out, though, that's it. You're getting your experience because you've never been at a job before, so you don't know if you're going to like it. You never
Yeah,
have been a cashier before, so you know if you're going to like it or not. And so you're going to
yeah,
just pay attention to that, the pattern of behavior. So let's say you go to this job and you just really are over it. You've done it for high school, and now you're graduated, you're going to college, and the next thing you know, you're working as a cashier again. But
yeah,
if you had an opportunity to do something else, then you wouldn't want to do a cashier. Like, why would you want to do something that would like you that
yeah,
you dislike? What I'm
yeah.
saying is that it's important to pay attention to that kind of behavior.
Yeah, I mean, if you have like an opportunity to do something like different and to experience new things and to, try to get to learn new things, I would recommend take the opportunity to, because then you're going to be open to like a whole new world of just, oh, it's like this happens, that happens, and I don't realize it because you're inside like this small bubble that you're so used to everything. So
Hmm.
if you have like an opportunity to do something, take it.
Yes, take it and be open minded about it. Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Which I also love about going back to my podcast is just being open minded to talk about almost anything because I do have some restrictions. There's just no politics and no religion because then it can go really controversial and then oh
Mm,
boy. So
yes.
just as much as I want to talk about like almost everything and learn new stuff, there's just some things I can't or shouldn't because then you know just
Yeah, it defeats the purpose of the
yeah.
entire podcast, right?
Honestly, it kind of does.
You want people to be curious, and you want all people to be curious about it. You
Yeah.
don't just want one person to develop some kind of view about you because of what you said and
Yeah.
think, oh, yeah.
Because I've thought about like, will I be able to like, will I discuss those topics one day? Yes, one day I will.
Hmm.
Just starting off, no. Like maybe like when I get like a few more episodes in, even though this is episode 19, just like get a bit more experience under my belt and just when I'm comfortable to talk about it and like ready to discuss it and publish it, then I will.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not an easy thing to talk about. And unfortunately, those are the things that we really should be talking about, but it's impossible with this climate and
Yeah.
sometimes people's behavior, the patterns of behaviors where I'm like
Yeah.
stuck at, right? Like,
Yeah.
that that's a hot button thing to talk about. And so we're just going to dance around it and then we're going to leave it alone because we don't want to go there. We want to talk
Yeah.
about other things.
Like you don't want to start an entire like war in the comments. Things like, but I think this, and then just everybody's just trying to like fight against each other because talking about, let's say, politics would be a really interesting episode, and I do think it would be an interesting episode one day. It's
Hmm.
just with everything that's going on currently in 2020 with this whole hectic year and stuff. I feel like
Hmm.
politics is one of the last things I should be able to talk about in 2020. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, because then a wide range of people just like, but I think this and things, and then it's like, what the hell did I do?
Yeah, you already can see that happening a mile away. You already know
Yeah,
you've seen it happen to other people, and it's so easy to just look at your podcast and what happened to other people and apply it. Like, yeah, it's a very
it's
real
like,
thing.
yeah, it sucks because my family, we watch the news, and we watch more American news than we do Canadian news. Because we'll be honest, American news is more interesting than Canadian news, and we do
I'll
like,
bet.
yeah, it really is.
I'll bet it's
And
very entertaining.
it is, and then it's just like then yeah, my parents screaming at the TV, but like this and that, and it's like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own opinions. Everybody has their own saying. It's just then if you share your opinions with somebody and they disagree with you and then they retaliate, then it can just go into this whole kerfuffle of madness.
Yeah, and that's like the whole problem with it too. It's because people aren't able to like really be curious about why they think that way, rather than just being immediately offended and wanting to change the other person's mind or defend their position when there's really not a need to. When someone is just expressing, there's an opportunity for you to just kind of step back if you're in a safe environment, step back
Yeah,
and just go, I wonder why you think that way
yeah,
and dig in
like
a little more.
yeah. It's also like important to ask yourself like, why do I have this stance on this? Just why? And when you really ask yourself that, you may like if somebody else asks it to you, it's like, oh, why do you have this opinion on this? Like, well, because I do. When you go to like range concert, you don't really have a real reason, and then you just have to ask yourself that and find what that reason is, and even if it's true.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like I've just been told that this is what my parents said. This is what I've always done, and you don't know why. Like, if
It's
it's
just like,
something that you choose to do, you choose to do, let's say for like I don't know, riding your bike or something, you choose to do for entertainment or
yeah.
for exercise. There's a reason for you to do it, not because you've always done it since you were a kid.
And it's like, yeah, but this is just my normal routine now. I go on bike rides for like 15 minutes. Like, but why? Like the real question behind like almost everything in life is just why? Why does this happen? Why is this that? Why do I do these things even though I do them?
Hmm. We are always looking for that kind of knowledge. And
Yeah.
well, psychology will tell us, like you're talking about these behaviors that we do is based on our feelings, and we feel something before we act. So I have this um, acronym called the BEAT: the beliefs, emotions, actions, and thoughts. I talk about that on my podcast too, Patterns of Possibility. It's one of the earlier episodes, the Beat Part One. But I talk about how your beliefs will drive your emotions will drive your actions, and your actions are like part of your thoughts as well. And they're all connected in some way. So you will be able to understand yourself a lot better when you pay attention to those things. So
Yeah.
you really don't know what your beliefs are. Most of the people don't know what their beliefs are. That's what we were just
Mhm.
talking about. Like, why are
Yeah.
we doing this? Why is that happening? People don't know. It's just something that happens. But we do know what we do. We can
Yeah.
see the action. We can see the A. We can see the A part of it. So if we look at our action and we think, well, how do I feel? We examine, how do I feel? Then that's the E. That's the emotion. And
Yeah.
then what's driving this feeling is when you step back and you find that belief. It's the most difficult part of it, but if you want to change anything about your behavior, then you have to examine your feelings, well, your actions and your feelings, and then your beliefs, finally, your beliefs.
Yeah. Is also with like the emotions, like how do I feel about this? You can also in a way lie about your emotions. Like you might not like say the full truth. It's like, oh, I just feel like neutral towards this, for example, but you really feel like on one side or the other, and you're not being completely honest with yourself. Like one key is to be completely honest with yourself and how you feel, and even if you don't know how you feel, just try to get to that point.
Absolutely, absolutely. It causes, I think, cognitive dissonance when you're believing something, but you're not really acting that way, and so you're kind of out of sync. And I think that, yeah, and I think that if your beliefs, your emotions, actions, and thoughts are all aligned, you'll be in sync. Basically,
Yeah.
you'll feel okay and comfortable with who you are and what you're doing because it's aligned. You're not
Yeah.
confused. Yeah.
And you'll be like, and from there you'll be more confident with yourself and what you'll do in the future, and like, okay, if I do this, this will happen. Like, I'm gonna go for this because I know this will happen, and stuff like that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Because like, I'll be honest, I've just been times where I'm like, I mean, should I? And I'm the type of person that contemplates every like the smallest amount of details, and I'll go between like multiple choices. Like, but what if this happens? This can happen. This could happen. And I'll think of like every single other possibility, just to try to avoid doing something, because anything could really happen. That's also like life's motto. Anything can happen. You just don't know it yet.
hmm And it's really good to be able to be prepared for anything that will happen rather than trying to control what happens next.
Yeah.
So you get the resilience. So I talk about confidence, direction, and resilience. And resilience comes from just being okay with the fact that you don't know what's coming, but you can figure out how to fix it or figure out how to get through it when it comes. That's what
Yeah.
your resilience is. Yes.
You just have to be like aware that, for example, let's say you're going up to this person and you want to confess your feelings to them as a statement. But
hmm
then, like, you hesitate before thinking, well, what if she says this? What if she says that? What if this happens? And you're going, like, super insane, just like, oh, God, I don't think I should do this. And you just back out of it immediately. Just,
hmm
even if you're not fully comfortable with it, even if you're not even fully confident in what you're going to say and what's going to happen, just do it. And whatever happens, happens.
Yes, whatever happens, happens. And it's terrifying. I mean, people are terrified to do that, man. It's so scary to be rejected. It hurts to the core.
It
It,
does really hurt.
yeah, it hurts to the core. And there's some scientific proof that says that, we are conditioned to be in groups and being rejected means certain death, and it's almost like that. And it really does feel like that. But at the end of the day, if you are able to take a deep breath and realize that it's not about you and it's okay. The last time you rejected, you were rejected, you didn't die, so you probably won't die this time, so you can make your way through it. Whatever you did to cope before, you can do it again.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, last time you were rejected, it's like, okay, you may have been sad for a while, but it's like, but then afterwards, it's like, okay, I got this. If I get
hmm
rejected, I get rejected. If something else happens, something else happens. You just gotta roll with it, and it even feels good. Like, for example, when you're like confessing your feelings to someone, it just feels good to just get it off your chest and like get the weight off your shoulders, and you feel
hmm
good afterwards, even if you do get rejected. It's like, and I've had that moment. It's just like, well, I just need to say that. It's like, oh yeah, I feel better now. It's like, even if
Yeah,
I got
because
rejected and stuff.
yeah, definitely. It's really tense carrying. It's really hard to carry all that stuff around too, because you have all these thoughts and ideas. What if? What if? What if? What if? What if? And then you finally get to the answer. Finally, get your answer. What if you actually do the action, and you hear, "Well, you've been rejected." Well, there's no more what ifs going through your head anymore. Hopefully, it's not replaced with why not? Why not? Why not? Hopefully
Oh
not.
god, if it gets replaced with like why not this, why not that, then you're gonna be in, ugh. You just like might
Yeah.
lose connection to that person. It's like, well, this, that, and then it's like, oh, because it can also lead to your like feelings getting hurt. It's like, well, this because of X, Y, and Z, or Z. That's how I would
hmm
say it, and then just makes you feel like worse. It's like, then you lose confidence in yourself after that point.
Yeah, but and that's also feedback for you. It's time
Yeah,
for some introspection. It's time to kind of look into yourself and see what other people see about you. So if they rejected you and they actually gave you feedback, like here are some reasons why, that's super valuable. I know
yeah,
it's hurtful to hear it, but if it's true and you take that information and you look at yourself and you say, well, yeah, maybe this is true. I maybe want to change something about this. The next person that you ask probably won't tell you those things. So
yeah,
you may get accepted by the next person, or you may improve. You may like the changes that you make. You don't
yeah.
have to make
And
them.
I've been in relationships before where it's like, and I've this like early on in the relationships, like, well, why do you like me? Like, what about me specifically? Like, you have to like that your curiosity starts like thinking it's like, well, why do you like me? Like, what is it about me? I want to know. And it's usually like, oh, okay, it's like roughly the same thing. It's like, oh, the way you smile, the way you act, like this and that. And it's like, okay. After a while, it's basically the same thing. You never until you like meet, let's say, the one, and that's right for you. Then they'll like be like honest and unique, and it's like perfect at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that a lot of my relationships were like that too. Like, I grew up in Ohio and I moved to California and then finally in Chicago where I live now. And during that time, I was just connecting with people and I thought that I was trying to be a genuine, cool person. Well, actually not. I was just one of those people pleasers. I was a people pleaser for a long time. And then I realized the people around me, I just thought they didn't like me. Yeah, because I was afraid of rejection all the time. So I thought
Yeah,
they didn't like me. So I barely opened up to them. And then I would be like, you guys don't even care about me. Well, they don't even know me really. So that's why I
true.
ended up moving to California and finding the same situation and then moving to Chicago and find the same situation.
It's like when you find yourself in like a new situation, you just find yourself, well, okay, this is gonna happen again. It's like you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to open up, I'm gonna let people know about me, I'm gonna try to seem interesting, but you don't, and it repeats
Yeah,
itself.
absolutely, absolutely. And that's exactly what happened is because there were a couple of things that were going on. First of all, I didn't know myself. I really didn't do that introspection and think, well, why am I doing this? Why am I not sharing with people? That's when I
Yeah,
started to ask myself that in Chicago. Why am I not sharing with people? Oh, because I'm afraid of rejection. Yeah, that is tense. So
yeah,
what am I gonna do about that when I get rejected? What's worse, being alone or getting rejected? Because either way, I'm alone. So
yeah.
why not just go for it?
I mean, honestly, if you're given like what's worse, being alone or being rejected, I'd say being alone is worse than being rejected because at least with the other part, you actually mustered up the confidence and went out your way in doing it, and you know an answer other than just like being alone and just like, oh, I wish this could happen, I wish that could happen, but you never do anything about it,
Yeah,
which
absolutely.
sucks.
Yeah, yes. And so it does, and it's awful. And another thing that I realized is that, well, because I don't know myself, I had a hard time making connections because we always want to be around people who are like ourselves. We always want to be
Yeah,
around people like that. And deep down to the core, where our core values are, is what many people don't realize that they need to know when they're making the connection. So to your point, when you talked about how you were in a relationship and you just smiled and that's what they really liked about you, well, that's really not going to help you with the core values. When you get into an argument about something, you're probably not going to be able to smile and have it go away and then think that, oh yeah, that's why I want to be with you because you have that great smile. That doesn't happen.
that's how that's just like, oh, like I like you for your smile. It's like, well, what else? And it's like, what do you mean what else? It's just like, but there has to be more to it. If you're just saying it's like my smile that makes you like me, then it's not really you like me for me. You like me for my smile.
Yes, absolutely. And just the smile, that's so interesting. It's so superficial. I mean, one day you're going to get older and your smile will change. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. But there are deeper issues or there are deeper things to connect on. And I also spend the energy and time to connect with people. So the confidence, direction, and resilience is what helps you connect with people. So you get the
Yeah.
confidence to be who you are, and you get the direction because you know what you like. You have that exploration. You know why you want to do this thing. It's your passion, and you feel it, and so you start heading in that direction. And then along the way, there are going to be pitfalls, there are going to be traps, there are going to be things that you have to deal with, and you have to have resilience to get there. So after you've
Yeah.
figured all that stuff out, talking to another human being will not phase you because somebody can reject you and tell you they don't like you for who you are. But if you're fine with who you are, then that's not a problem.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you accept yourself for yourself and you don't see anything wrong with that, it's like I'm happy with who I am. Nothing else matters in that point. And so you get rejected. It's like, oh, because this. It's like, okay, done. Move on.
Yeah, there. Thank goodness. You'll start to think differently. You'll be like, thank goodness they told me ahead of time.
Yeah.
So
It's
I
like
don't waste my energy on this.
It's like, thank you. At least I know now. And it's just like, so I don't make that mistake. It's like, And with the thing of, let's say, just being happy with what you're doing, things about like people's dream jobs and like what they want to pursue in life can come at the most random times and most random moments, and it can be like the weirdest things at times. You could be doing this like odd job or just favor for someone. It's like, oh, but I actually really like that. I want to continue it, and then you like start getting more into it, and you start more learning more about it, and that becomes like your life's work.
Absolutely. That's so interesting that you'd say that because that's how it happened to me. That's how I happened to become a coach is because I went through that process. It happened in California where, I moved from Ohio to California thinking that this is a fresh start. I'm going to learn new things. It's going to be awesome and be around people that I could really connect with. It didn't happen. So I was like at my job, I applied for a position that would allow me to work with analytics, work with Excel and things like that.
Yeah,
And I didn't realize that I loved it until I started to do it. And it was the most amazing thing. I would start taking work home with me. I would start practicing. I would do all these things that really just showed that analytics is where I wanted to be. And that's what I basically do. That's how I moved to Chicago. I got a promotion in Chicago working as an analyst. And there I realized that I analyze everything. So I have all these patterns of behavior that I talk about. I mean, there are specific patterns of behavior that you can you can tell that people do. Like I can talk to people, they can give me just a couple of sentences, and I can basically understand where they're coming from, what their relationship is like, how they're interacting with other people, because the patterns appear in everything. Yeah,
yeah,
so that's how I found out. I just liked it, and I started to go in that direction. Everything that I was not confident about, I'm very confident in the fact that I can be an analyst, that I can do
yeah.
analytics. Yeah,
It's like
had
not
to,
only till I started my podcast, weirdly enough, that editing, like video editing and audio work, is like super interesting, and that's what I actually want to pursue in life. And go to be like a video editor and like do this professionally and maybe full time at some point, and like do this podcast and have fun with it because it can go in any matter of directions per episode. Like you have, okay, today's topic is this, but then it can go into this and that, and you have so many more interesting conversations with people, and you
mm-hmm,
learn so many new things.
mm-hmm.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. It's you're following your passion, which is great. You're already feeling
Yeah.
it. You like,
It's like I never knew until I started this that this would be something that I would like because back in high school I would jump around from many days like, oh, I want to become a doctor, I want to become a ventriloquist, and these are real ideas I had in high school. It's like because you have phases when you go for in life. Yeah, like I had like a ventriloquist phase. I try to learn how to like manage a puppet, and I had this Rubik's cube phase that I'm still currently in because I still solve Rubik's cubes, but that's not an actual job. um, then at one point, I come home from school. I tell my parents like I want to become a doctor, and I was like really happy about it. I was really serious. Then that just fell off track until my last year of high school. I decided on becoming a translator and like taking languages and doing like translation work. And then again fell off track, and now I'm here, and I'm happy.
all right, you found the thing. It sounds like you're a typical artist creator type person.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is what we kind of do. We just create things, and then we like it, and
yeah,
we move on from the creation that we've had, like
yeah.
the testing, the thing that you've done with like all these different things that you've experienced. And it's so interesting that you talked about being a doctor and then going to be a ventriloquist because I do not see those things together at all. They just don't.
It does not work. It's just you just like switch from one thing, and it's like different direction time.
Yes, I'm going to
Like
be
you
a
can,
doctor ventriloquist.
I mean, if somebody is that, I'll be highly impressed.
Yeah, and it just
But
speaks to your curiosity.
yeah, like you can have your heart set out on, let's say, for example, you want to be a lawyer, and that's like what you want to be when since you're young. And but then like you're in college and you're taking these courses, and then something else piques your interest, and it's like, oh, I want to learn more about that. And then again, get into it more, and just career path just completely switches out of nowhere, and you never thought it would be possible. You can go from like the weirdest thing to the next thing, just like that, without realizing it.
Yeah, it's so easy to do that for some people, and it can be a blessing and a curse as well, because
Yeah.
there's just not enough time to learn all the things. There's just not. We don't have enough time to do that. But it can be fulfilling because we are learning as well.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
It's like just learning in general is fun. I mean, you can hear people complain, like teenagers and people complain. It's like, oh, I hate school. I hate going to class. I hate this. I hate that. It's like, yeah, we get it. School isn't the best thing ever. It's not like super fun. Yes, you're sitting in a class. Well, we were sitting in class, and now we're sitting behind our computers, like for hours at a time. It's just, yes, it can get tiring. It can get stressful, but all of that just pays off in the end. And you work yourself up to what you want to be, and yeah, it just all pays off.
Yeah, definitely. And it's all about having the resilience to see what's happening at the end. Like, why are you doing that in the first place? You hate it so much, but you're gonna get through it, because at the end of the day, or at the end of the school year, you're going to graduate to go to college, and you really want to go to college to do X, Y, and Z.
Hmm.
Said Z.
Yeah, yeah, Zen. Yeah, the Canadian way of saying it, because we are different.
I think
Honestly,
I
yeah.
think the
Sorry.
U.S. I think the U.S. is the one that's different. We just create our own. We create our own little thing. We create everything, like, just we drive on the wrong side of the road, and we don't use the metric system.
It's imperial.
Yeah, like, who? What is a foot? Like,
A
what is that?
foot.
What is
What
that?
is a foot? Like 12
Yeah,
inches?
yeah, 12 inches. And just because I grew up with it, it's just a thing that I can do, I can deal with. But I mean, as an analyst, as looking at someone who measures things, like measuring things in tens, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Centimeters, millimeters, and
Like what
it
I
just
get
makes sense.
confused about, like I get confused about the imperial system all the time because the metric system we're used to, like, okay, kilometers, and it's like we have inches, we have feet. Then I go and see like ounces and gallons, and I'm like, what the hell? And I always get told, it's like, what's an ounce in this? Like, what's an ounce in cups? It's like, oh, it's this. And I don't remember off the top of my head because I don't remember. And then you have people like measuring in like football fields and washing machines, and then it's like,
Hmm.
why? It's like, oh, it's like 2 football fields long. Well, how long is a football field? It's like, uh, just,
It's like, it's so weird. Yeah, these metrics that we use.
yeah. I've also like heard acre. I've heard furlong. I've heard chain. I'm like, why?
God, I honestly have no idea what those things are. Couldn't tell you. I could not tell you what an acre is. Half acre, quarter acre,
It's like,
nothing.
it's like, oh, like I have like 6 acres of land. I was like, well, how long is that? It's just, and then after
Yeah.
a while, just like you don't even know what it is, even though, like for example, we use the metric system. You guys use the imperial system. You've used that throughout your life, but you don't know why. It's like okay, this is like this long. Why is it that long? Why is it different?
Oh yeah. I think it's just because somebody made it up.
It's just like, well, this is America. This is gonna be different from everywhere else. And it's just like, but why are you making it so hard? And so like, nope, you're gonna have acres and this and that. And it's like you're gonna measure things by football fields. It's like, why can't we be like the rest of the world? So simple.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah,
It's so wild. It's so wild, man. Yeah.
yeah. Like I can like discuss like differences between like Canada and America for like maybe 20 minutes, or like differences, because there are a lot of differences in between cultures as well. Because Canada is this like multicultural country, and you have so many cultures. And like when you visit, let's say Montreal, where I am, you'll just see a bunch of cultures, and it's all nice. And then you have the Quebecois who just they go all hand speaking French and just like oh, this is tabarnak. This is just but it's fun at the same time because it's where I live. It's normal for us. And thing that I also learned when I took anthropology in college, because I managed to pass that somehow. It's when you're visiting a new place for the first time, you're experiencing like a sort of culture shock, and you're seeing things that's like not normal to you, but it's normal to the people living there.
Hmm.
And then you're just having this whole shock about it. It's just like, Whoa, okay, this is new. I have to adapt to this. I have to adapt that. To use this and do that. And just that in itself is pretty interesting. It's one of the interesting things I learned from anthropology.
Oh yeah, the culture shock is so amazing. Like, be prepared to be
Yeah,
stunned by something that you didn't know before, or you saw them
yeah.
doing it. You're experiencing something that um, people do a completely different way. Like, I know that in Japan, the toilets that
The talking
you kind
toilets.
of the talking toilets. I don't know about
I
that.
think there's talking toilets.
I believe it. I believe it.
Eventually, I'm just gonna go to Japan one year, and it's like I go to a washroom. It's just like, what the hell? You see these
Yeah.
like highly futuristic toilets. It's like, well, this is weird.
But there are some toilets that you actually just kind of squat over there, and so it would be a huge culture shock, right? You just
Yeah.
like, oh my god, like, can you imagine that? I've
Like,
seen it. I've not watched anybody use it. I mean, but I've seen it and I know it exists, and it's just like, wow, I'm blown away by that.
yeah, and then you have like I think it's like more like the Asian countries that like, you have like all these like certain ways to like eat and like have like ways to like, just even walk in the street. I know it's like, oh, don't litter here. It's like littering is also bad everywhere, but still, so you don't litter here. It's like you use your right hand for this, you use your left hand for this. As I hold up my left hand when saying right and my right hand saying left, because that makes total sense.
Yeah, for us who's watching you, yes.
Yeah, it's like this is my left, this is my right, but I call this my right and this my left because no reason. And it's interesting, like you have to like, oh, you use your, I don't know, for example, your left hand for eating and your right hand for hygiene stuff, because that's how they know their culture. That's their culture. Then
Hmm.
you like, let's say, I think it's India, I believe. If I'm getting that wrong, please let me know in the comments or just anywhere. But you go there for the first time and you start eating normally how you would. If like, oh, your
Hmm.
forks, chopsticks, like, and then the people start looking at you weirdly because it's like, that's not how you do it. That's not right. But to you, it is. And
Yeah,
it's
or yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's where, having a little bit of knowledge about people's culture and their behaviors really help you in that situation, because they could also look at you and think, well, you are not from this country. It's obvious. Okay.
obvious.
So you're putting,
It's like,
yeah, because you're not doing what we do. So you stand out a
yeah,
little bit.
but then if you're like open-minded to just learning how they like how they are in their culture, how they eat, how they do this, how to do that, then you're like it's also your curiosity is also sparking. Like everything comes back to curiosity at that point. It's like, well, how do you guys do stuff? It's like, oh, we do it like this, we do it like that, and it's like, oh, okay. Oh, then you start doing it like that. Then you start learning more information, and then like if you're like go back home to your home country, then start telling stories like, oh, well, they do stuff like this and this happens and that, and it's like wonderful.
Absolutely. Especially if it's non-judgmental or non-critical, it's just information for you to gather. Hey, they do it this way. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm not saying that it's a bad way. It's just something that's different.
It's their way. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like, oh, we do this from that. And also, what I learned in anthropology as well is in some cultures, they use something called dead reckoning, which is being able to tell which direction you're facing and where you're going like that. Like you should
Yes.
know which direction you're facing. It's like instead of saying like, "Oh, your left shoelace is untied," it's like, "Oh, your northwest shoelace is untied." And
I
that's
find that
also
remarkable.
yeah, dead reckoning is incredible. Also, perfect pitch, which is I have a friend who has perfect pitch, and it's like because she's been playing piano since she was like 6 years old, and it's interesting. It's just like being able to know what note anything is at. It's like
Hmm.
just done. It's like wow.
Yeah, that is really impressive when people are able to do that. And back
Yeah,
to the dead reckoning thing, I really find that just really, really amazing that people can do that. And that's how you greet each other. You're like, which
yeah,
way are you facing? Which way are you facing? That's pretty much it. Like, how are you today? That's
yeah,
basically it. Yeah, and that's just really fascinating to be able to do
yeah.
that.
I
Hmm.
I think there was one person. I think they had some guy. They took put him in a blindfold and spun him around the room, and he was still able to tell which direction he was facing after all that. And you just look at that and you're in awe, and it's just like wow.
Yeah, like, how did
Also,
you develop that? Yeah.
it's like, well, it's what we do. It's normal to us. Like we can tell what direction facing. Like, oh, I'm facing south now. It's like Me personally, I have no clue of what direction I'm specifically facing at this point. I just know is that when I used to go to high school, and I found this weird because we have a place Montreal North,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where my high school was, and I would take a bus that was going south
Okay.
and west to go to a place called Montreal North.
Wow. That's so
It's like
interesting.
I take the south bus to go north. It's like, well, that's normal.
That's what we're doing here. That's what
Yeah,
we call it.
yeah.
Yeah. Um,
It's amazing at times.
yeah, this it is, I guess, depends on your culture and what you're doing.
Yeah,
And it makes sense to you because I mean, it wouldn't make sense to me if I came like, well, what? I'm lost. I don't know what's going on.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
well, I'll say that's all the time we have for this episode. I hope all the listeners who are listening learn something new, were piqued in interest,
Hmm.
and Lee, I'll give you some time to promote your podcast to everybody who's listening or watching.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
go ahead.
So my podcast is called Patterns of Possibility, and I share my personal experiences and how I discovered the patterns of behavior and what I learned from them. So I share all that with you, and I mix it a little bit with music because music is really, really fun.
Yeah.
And I also have you can catch me at www.patternsofpossibility.com. I'm also on Instagram, everywhere at Patterns of Possibility. You can find me on YouTube as well. I make videos about how to be more confident, have direction, and find resilience.
Yeah,
Thanks.
those all the links will be in the description below. And I'm glad I'm doing video now that I can actually point downwards. Because when I
Yeah.
did this with just audio, it made no sense whatsoever. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Lee, for first off suggesting this topic and for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me. It was really
Yeah.
great.
Tune in next time and perhaps full curiosity and always stay curious. Bye, guys.
Bye.